Hello, y'all. Christian White, the One Day at a Time Dad, presenting Listening to Learn, a series designed to discover solutions to community issues through the voices of lived experience. Today, I am with Elvis. A pleasure. I appreciate this.
Likewise, brother.
I see this dude's comments, and I'd be like, sometimes I get mad, then I'd be like, hey, what can I do but accept it? Tell me, what was the culture in your house like growing up, and then the culture outside of the house?
The culture at home growing up, to be honest with you, the culture at home was, first off, I'm Dominican on both sides of my family, my father and mother, but I have my mom at home mostly, and what I know most about life comes and stems from that example for the most part. So most of what I've seen in my house dynamic were women going out, if not in school, going out to get it at work, late hours or early. I wasn't home alone. They were always there, but they were also always tired. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not in an insulting way. Truly, it's not. But I could just see the strenuous situations. I could understand to a degree.
How old were you when you started having that understanding?
About 8 and 9.
Oh, wow. Oh, early age.
Yeah. And in the outside dynamic, as much of it as I was able to understand was just as hectic. Everything appeared well, but then you look deeper, you go into the next corner, everything was something out of whack, or it was a chaotic situation going on left or right. So there was never anything good, to a degree, I guess you could say. Everywhere you would go and turn, you had gang violence in one area, you had another abusive household going on in every corner of the streets that I was around. Some places were cool. The parks were always a place to go. They were always a place to hang out. The beach was always a place to hang out. But everything at the time was about, who was the coolest. I mean, isn't it what it always is? who was the coolest, who had the best rap, who had the best gangster bravado, gangster ideal, gangster vibe, who gave off that badass look worse or best. And obviously I couldn't keep up, so I didn't really try to be too much a part of it. I sort of stayed in the realm where you kind of get to know everybody, and that gave me a different benefit. I was able to reason with a lot of folk. Little did I know at the time that I'd be a part of, a select few people like this over my lifetime that I got to study about, who seemed to be just like that. And it was inspiring and honestly educational and self-awareness bringing. Is that a thing?
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean?
Tell me more about that. The benefit of not subscribing to maybe one specific neighborhood, whatever the case may have been, the way you looked at it growing up. Tell me more about the benefits of, I guess, staying neutral. And I'm assuming in some ways you had to be confident enough to stay neutral.
It was funny, I'll be honest. I had to read a situation and understand where I can benefit the most based on where I stand. And it's never going to be about who's going down in my situation. It's going to be about how we can grow best together the most. And I don't know why I had that early on. I didn't give it that identity then. Yep. I didn't conceptualize it like that then, or I guess define it like that then. But that's what it really boiled down to. I cared more about what my bully, or what, the person that was considered a thug, or the person that was set off aside, or even the popular person, if you look on the other side of the spectrum, what their dynamic was, why they were doing that, why they wanted to be that. And I would always want to be a friend to everybody. I was a weird dude. I wasn't like the best type of person.
What do you mean by that?
Like I wasn't book savvy. I wasn't like athletic. I didn't have that many friends like that. I had the friends I had, I still have to this day, and I love them to death. And that really expanded into everybody later on in life with my perspective growing. But initially, like, I didn't know how to be anything that people considered cool. I didn't know how to keep up with sneakers. I didn't know how to keep up with sports. I didn't know how to even physically want to be about that life. So I just never tried those things. And I didn't have nobody at home to show me how to be that. Nobody was encouraging me to say, hey, you could do more. My mom was doing the best she could. And at the time, it was getting the bills paid. At the time, it was keeping food on the table. At the time, it was keeping a roof over our head and not being taken for granted like a sucker, because this is a woman in a world where men thrive the most. Being real. But I didn't know that at the time in that way then. And
when did you start realizing that aspect? In terms of what your mom was going through and maybe some of the challenges she had to face just to continue to provide for y'all?
After I had my son.
And how old were you then?
I was 26.
So your son's 4?
Yes.
Okay.
Turned 4 just a few weeks ago.
Okay. What kind of dad are you? What's your style?
I'm a goofy dad. I'm just me, my personality. Like I kind of like hype everything he does up, because it just I just feel like I need to do that.
Do you know what immediately comes to mind when you say that?
Yeah.
When I watch the videos of the the lions playing with their cub.
Okay.
And like they let them bite on them, and they let the cub bite all over them. And with every bite, we know it's like but they'll be like,
They exaggerate to instill that, keep doing what you're doing.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Gain your confidence. I didn't have that. So I guess that's where that stems. And having that understanding and having that connection for me turns into something more that I can carry next time around, or in a situation where I find where I have to be, I don't know, a voice of reason, or I can be somebody to speak with, whatever the situation is calling me for. I don't think I've had any shortage of where I've been called to and what type of situations I've dealt with. But nevertheless.
When did you notice that you were sort of that bridge for people? Because I look at that's a skill, it's a talent, it's a power, it's however you want to look at it.
When I understood before the altercations, or when I understood before the challenges?
Well, when did you realize that you were the one that people would come to?
When I understood before the challenges that were happening, that I was, how do you put it, that I was relating perfectly fine with party A, and then in some other day or some other case relating just the same, if not just as well, with party B. Not fully knowing, not fully being aware or caring much for whatever bad blood may have been going on, or whatever, whatever narrative is going on in a negative situation that's going to birth a fire of some sort. I just know that when things happen, I feel for both sides. I always feel, and speaking about it, it's a part of the reason why I came home after my time in the Army. I feel pain when I hear about loss, or when I hear about tragedies or confrontations, or disagreements, or things going on within either the streets or family dynamics, because you're around enough people, you get an understanding of, despite how complex and different we all are from where we come from, we all live the same basic sufferings, the same basic tragedies.
Absolutely.
On different levels.
What made you decide to go to the Army? How old were you when you went?
19, 20.
Was there specific reasons?
Yeah. It was either going to be that, or figure out what I was going to do after I finished my semester in community college, because I wasn't really that good with school. I'm all right in some things when I apply myself, but being honest, I I didn't care to apply myself in a lot of the things I didn't find interesting. I just didn't know how to express that in a different way. There was nothing around enough for me to care to get into it. And so that lack of really want for anything kind of put me in a place where I was either going to end up making bad choices or take the army route, which is something that I found right at the nick of time. I took that with the expressed feeling that I was gonna go and expand what I already knew, and I wasn't gonna get that understanding or that teaching back home where I was, because everything was already established the way I knew it, and I just needed to get around it. Like, you can't help to just go around what you already know. So I had to push myself to go into something that was completely unknown and see what happened. It wasn't.
What was it like in the Army?
People didn't agree, but I had to do it. I had to do what I had to do. Believe it or not, it's not any different, but the culture itself is different, and the structure that you have to follow. Everything does fall on you, but it's more like by law. It's like having the law over your neck every day, and knowing that if you're not doing what you legally promised you'd do, then you can get penalized to a point where you lose whatever it is that you lose. I can't really give it anything specific without going into my personal experience.
So when you go into the Army, your body, like, everything is not yours anymore?
No, not at all. Everything, you're doing everything for the benefit, the express benefit of the man to your left and your right, or the woman to your left and your right. You now become somebody who has to be fully equipped and who has to be fully, what's that word? When you're not able, like I'm not being now.
Handicapped? No. You have to be compliant?
No, you have to be aware. Like, you have to be understanding. Like, you have to have common sense. What's that? Wit? No, not wit. It is wit, but it's another word.
It'll come. Yeah, it'll come.
But you have to be a multitude of those things. You just have to know. You just have to understand that it ain't about you. It's about getting everybody home safe in the event that there's a mission. Now, the regular culture and how you live day to day, those are all different. Everybody's expressed feeling and how they go about that and their journeys through their lives in the military is all particular to them. Overall, though, the entire idea is you go about what you go about in whatever mission you're set to, but you do it knowing that you got to bring everybody home. That's what it's all about, the mission, and then bringing everyone home, period.
So let me ask, when you went, while you were serving in the Army, how often did y'all talk about politics or the larger concepts of why you were fighting?
Politics wasn't a thing. That's done on leisure time, like anybody does. You know, you have your own conversations, but the military itself is not, by nature, it's not supposed to be involved in politics. It's everything going on right now in the country with this guy in charge, none of that is supposed to be happening as far as the military being involved. We're not supposed to be doing that. We're not. We're just following orders, doing what we're told. There's a very big difference with, and I gotta say this, with how police officers view that statement versus what the military is. We're by law federally obligated. We agreed to do it. You know, we volunteered, but after that point, it's no longer volunteer. It's voluntold.
Voluntold.
Period. You still have the option to stay or not in your profession, without there being some level of scrutiny or something to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get looked at in the eyes. Hell, better yet, leaving the military any way other than honorable is a mark on your record for the rest of your life. Period. And that follows you. it's not the same for police officers. You're a peacekeeper. You're somebody who's there for the community to help bring balance when you're needed. You're not there to enforce anything of nothing. The idea that there needs to be an enforcement on the community. Now, granted, you have your cases where that's necessary, of course, because chaos does happen, and this is life. Let's not be
Yes.
foolish about this. But overall, the culture about you should not be threatening. People should want you in their lives. People should want you around, and it should be people that come from your same neighborhoods as well.
Where do you think the disconnect between police in general, especially in inner city neighborhoods, where do you think the disconnect happened, continues to happen? Do you think there are ways to repair it?
The disconnect between police and the community?
Yeah.
It happened the moment they put the badge on. The idea, the concept that they feed them, and that goes into what I went through in my military time. The culture that you're subject to, that you agree upon being a part of. Now, despite me having to be federally involved and legally, obligated and obliged to do things, you're the same when you are in the job. I'll give you that respect, but you do have the option to leave. However, when they are in there trying to make the most of it and the best, it is understandable that if you're not playing ball, you're not going to get far. And that goes with any enterprise.
Anything, so no doubt about it.
Who's at the helm is what's most important, giving the orders on what's to be expected. Because that's what's really laid out.
Understood. Totally understood. What made you decide to leave the Army? Because I'm assuming, I don't know exactly how it works, but you had to re-sign a few times, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay.
My heart wasn't in it anymore. My passion to want to be in that job, to do the good that I want to do, but within that space was starting to fade. I was still holding on to all the good and the bad, all the lessons and losses that I was able to experience, but the want and need to continue to grow in there started to die out, and so I had to look elsewhere. But I quickly understood that I needed to just come home with everything I now gained, because I have an opportunity to really be able to set a precedent. I can set a standard. I can help bring an example, something different to the mix. Not off of what I've seen before. There's that, but there's also what I've had to receive phone calls about. Hey, so-and-so passed. Hey, so-and-so is in jail for a murder or a case or distribution or whatever.
Yeah.
So-and-so is deported because we're Hispanic and black and native and everything in between. We're an entire melting pot, and everybody loses somebody over that phone call. And losing enough of those, seeing enough of those articles, reading enough of those comments, I felt guilty enough that I wanted to come and see what I can possibly bring with what I have as a gift, or gifts, and be able to give more than take back or take away. I left at one point and I didn't think I was ever going to come back. I gave myself that initiative. I wasn't going to set myself to a lane where I was going to turn around and come back home off of no. But here we are. Little did I know that I was becoming a better version of me, so that I could at least try to facilitate some level of opportunity for others trying to push past whatever it is they're trying to get through.
Now, do you do this for work? Do you do this on the side for your personal? Do you do it both? How do you go about doing outreach?
I do this. This is like my life. And what's funny about it is, when you do something like that by yourself, it's taxing, like in the physical world, and like
I have no clue what you're talking about. Of course, I know exactly what you know exactly. I know what you're talking about.
Like, but at the same time, I don't have the luxury of being the type of caliber person to ever give myself that excuse. I can't give me that. I can't, because I've given too many people around me that are more than capable of holding me accountable too much hope about me, too much love from me, I've shown too much of what there's lack of, and that's loyalty, and that's understanding, and that's empathy, and that's hope, and that's togetherness, and that's not giving up on people. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what it is that you feel the world has been putting you through. If you don't have somebody to lean on, you might as well feel like you're dead. And I've felt that on more than one occasion. When you're by yourself, and regardless of how tough you want to be or how tough you've been, that's no way to go about life. It never has been.
When you would experience that, what were the feelings like, and how did you work through those? Do you still get that way now?
Last time I felt that bad was anywhere between February, March of this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the depression level was high, which that ties into the military service as well.
In what sense? Mental
health, and they don't talk about that enough. They let us loose after we serve our time, and not only do they not make the services that are out there for us easily accessible, they should honestly automatically just have that already
something
done.
Set up.
We should already just be leaving and just be walking into something. If we're this great, if we're praised this much, if we're loved and we're honored and we're cared for, the troops, because I see the same shit y'all see. If we're all this, that should be the bare minimum standard.
Yeah.
For any veteran leaving the service, any branch of the service, that shit should already be laid out. And we're not royalty, we don't even ask for much, and most of them won't even agree with me. Some of them will do well to argue, because they're just that strong and that patriotic and that independent, and some will just not agree flat out, and that's okay. But bottom line is, we're all people in that same regard. And that same example I just gave, that just shows you that we're still just all people, and that should be something that should be given. That should be. It should be. If we're that great, if we're going to be used that much as an example for the public.
Yes. Absolutely.
Athletes are glorified more than we are, in the sense that their pockets and the way they live and their luxuries and their inspired momentary lives and situations.
Yes, there's reasons for that.
There is.
And I mean, I'm sure there's many reasons, but I was doing some reading a long time ago. So a few thousand years ago, generals were what we would know as the celebrities now.
Right.
But the problem with generals becoming celebrities is once you reach a certain status, you tend to plot a coup. You tend to want to be more powerful. And it shifted towards who became the leading heroes of the time. And it got to a point where it said that they understood they couldn't keep that same formula of popularizing military figures, because if you want to be like them, that could be a problem for them. So we'll put these people popular, let them dictate truths, let them step up, let them do whatever needs to be done, because we know that all they'll ever do is do what they're doing and continue to spend money with and it becomes the same cycle.
Then don't popularize it. Because nothing I'm talking about is to popularize us at all. I don't care for I'm honored to have been a part of a family and a team that, at the end of the day, not everybody gets to see and be a part of an experience.
Do you still connect with brothers and sisters?
Absolutely. That's a must. You have to, period.
Why?
It's a brotherhood. It's a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a familyhood. It's life. And that's what I'm getting into. It's that feeling of alone, that feeling of going without, of thinking that you're by yourself. It happens to us more often than not. And it was great and all, but the toll that takes on the mind to every one of us is unfathomable with the way that we have to by law conform and do things.
And so by the way you conform, I mean, I can only imagine what you see. I can only imagine that.
But isn't the issue.
Ooh, interesting.
The issue is how we're taken care of after the fact. Because we all agreed to be subject. We all do. And that's not where the tragedy strikes. To me, the tragedy is where the aftermath of it all, where we're forgotten, where we're left to just fend for ourselves. Those of us who aren't able to figure out how to get to where we need to get to, because everybody again has their own opinion. Oh, you're just lazy. Oh, you're just this. Oh, you're just that. Well, I have this. Well, I have that. Great. Again, you're just giving me the same example that we're all still just the same people. But not everybody gets to be under the same constructs. But when they do, as you see, even in regular life, everybody is different. We can grow up in the same block, but we're not going to end up as the same people.
Yes.
We're never going to end up on the same path. We're never going to be the same outcome on anything. Why would you ever try to apply that just to try to defend this thing, which I am defending, because it's a brotherhood and it's a privilege to be a part of. Doesn't need to be glorified. Nothing I did I'm proud about, in the sense that, yes, I did something. I was a part of something bigger than me that was meant for the purpose of a greater good. That's what matters. And I chose to live that life. I chose to be successful in where I am today, and I wouldn't be where I am today without it, period. But being of that cloth, I am not going to leave it and give it a break just like I would anything else, because I wouldn't anything else. And I won't this either. This gets the same scrutiny from me as it does the same level of love. And it's a balance. I'm not going to downplay anything that the military is or isn't just because of my experience. It is what it is. It turns people into what they turn them into what it turns them into. And people don't care enough to do something about it. That is what is.
I read a quote, and it said, the purpose of the military is to make you a killer.
No, yeah, that's
it.
In its basic form, yes. You go to basic training, it's in the title, basic training. How to basic soldier. How to be a basic, and what's that mean? You need to know how to shoot, and you need to know how to save the person next to you. Advanced individual training, AIT, that's where you go into your job description, the title that you chose. I guess the little bit of.
And how did you go about? What did you go into, and how did you choose that?
That's totally dependent upon how you test and how you score in physical and mental challenges that they set up. That's all the same for everyone.
So once you came home after the 8 years, and it's crazy because every time I'm listening to you, I'm thinking of me wrapping up. It feels like we're both wrapping up. But so you come home because you felt the need to come home. What do you do for work? How do you adjust? How quickly do you go into the mode of helping? Immediately.
Immediately. Because we live in the social world, in the social media world, it's easy access to be able to communicate with people, so you keep in touch. You know, you extend a hand, or you become a part of whatever's going on the social web that day. Everything changes. But at the time, I was using it to stay in touch with a lot of people from home. And that way I was able to at least begin to set a foundation. So when I started to move around, when I got out, I had to really plan ahead and save up enough money so that I could make the drive up. I drove from Texas back up here in my Chevy Impala that I had at the time. Texas is where I was stationed.
Okay.
And when I drove up, from that point, I already have family, I already have friends, and people that I could reach to in Lynn, involved in the creative space when it came to hip-hop, or when it came to just music in general, the arts. I was originally going to a lot of political events. I was getting really involved with the Seth Moulton situation that was going on at the time. He was really popular, and I got to meet people because I got to network a little bit here and there, and that's really that. The first year was that big focus, was just getting to know the faces. Who represents Lynn out here? Who represents businesses? Who represents opportunities? Who represents whatever you call hope, whatever you call progression and moving forward? Who is it?
Yes,
and
yes,
I just
yes.
want to know.
And I'm glad that you made a distinction, because the reality is, progressive can be defined differently by everybody.
Everybody. For
some people, progressive is defund police. For others, it's give them more money. For some people, it's vote Trump out. For some, it's get them back in there quick as possible. I mean, it's for everybody. It's different.
You mentioned defund police, and people continuously get that wrong.
Agreed.
Defunding police. I don't know why. I do know why people want to think up that narrative.
I mean, first of all, I personally, and this is with my experience of what I've been through, believe the police are absolutely necessary.
Period.
Let's be clear about that.
But all that means is, you know, if you got a faucet in your kitchen with the water on, and you pay a water bill, are you gonna? Do you think you should defund the utility people? Yes, you probably should, right? So you should turn the faucet off and stop wasting money where it doesn't need to be wasted. Yes. It's not that you're not ever gonna do it again or use it again or need it again, but you don't need it now. So there's no reason to fund anything into this thing that doesn't need money right now, because it's got more than enough, as you can see in its equipment, in the way that they're training, and in the way that they've got unions. There is nothing those folks are missing, because anytime any one of them murders somebody, you don't hear from them again if they're still not in their job. I haven't heard of any cop go to jail like any one of us.
Yes. And we know that it's not they typically don't get fired, they get retired with a small cut in whatever they built over the years. Yeah, I totally agree.
And again, that also does not apply to everyone as a whole either.
A moral question. When you, as a veteran, look at a police officer who may be a veteran or whatever, or just somebody who's structured, organized, you know, with the ability and the law behind them to kill if necessary, which is a big thing I think people don't think about. But morally, what does it do to you when you see somebody you might have looked at as a brother or a sister make decisions that you just know are wrong, especially when a person ends up dying?
Me personally,
yes,
man, it starts off with me trying to love this person as much as possible. It starts off with me trying to love you. It starts off with me knowing full well who I know you to be, as I understood and as I met you. Giving you that respect always. Benefit of the doubt. But then if I see that this is just who you are and it's who you've become outside of where I knew you, and it's something else entirely, then I gotta start, you know, adjusting and getting better clarity with myself on what it is that I'm seeing in front of me. So you're saying that you're this way in this place, but then you're that way over here.
Yes.
Okay, that already to me doesn't smell right.
Yes.
So I need to step away. But in where I can still have dialogue with you, I'm always open to doing so, because I'm not somebody to just shut anybody down. I will listen to what anybody has to say, and I always want to. I love that engagement. I think it helps me as well. When it doesn't help you and you're just sitting still in what you already continue to be, that's where I find it to be boring, and I won't want to mess with you anymore. If I see that I'm no longer helping you grow either, and you're not getting better, and better doesn't mean what I expect you to be, it means what is.
Yeah. You
shouldn't sound the same as you do after 4 years.
Yes. Yes.
This is the example I'm using right now, out of all things I could. Then it's something that I need to let go of. You're not conducive to my growth in my life, and therefore you're not going to be conducive to anyone I have around me. So now you're jeopardizing what I'm trying to do by people. You're slandering what I could possibly be as a good name for others. So I need to back away out of respect for everyone else who is doing what, whatever they can by me, because I can't allow myself to fall short of who I am, messing with somebody who's just trying to siphon from me.
What are conversations like with your son? I'm curious.
He's only 4.
I know that. I know that. So
I don't say nothing like that.
Yes. Keeping in mind age appropriateness. How do you foster in him his right to be assertive and to speak up?
He already is. He's a Leo. He was born as he is, and he likes things particular. So I love just being whatever he needs at the time, and most of it is just affirming the things that he already knows. Hey, this is what I like. Hey, look, this is what I'm playing with.
Do you think? Yes, yes. That's and so part of, it'll always be a I guess maybe not a regret, but it'll always be a source of pain for me that I wasn't there for Christian for those years, because when I went to prison, his mom was 8.5 months pregnant. So
I had to accept that.
Yeah, it was hard to accept. Some days I still don't accept it, but
you have to accept it in order to be better for it.
Agreed.
Because the only real way to be able to give that any sort of good reasoning behind it is to at least be able to know why, you're feeling the guilt. And if you're not seeing it develop better in you, then there's still something that you can do. Like, what I mean is, if you know you have to be away from your kids and you have to do life the way you got to do it and figure things out, then do that. No one needs to know that you're out here not being physically in your children's life, if that's your case, or if you're not calling, or if you're not picking them up at times. Have a reason. If you're just out here, and that's the reason why you're not in your kids' lives, then you're not somebody that can be worked with.
Yes.
We're people. We're not perfect. Parents were never perfect either.
Yeah.
And we give them the credit we give them because without us knowing, had whatever dynamics they had and did what they could.
And that took me a long time to accept from my mom and dad. A long time.
And that has to be okay. It has to be okay, because life is gonna go. And if you're not emotionally strong enough to be able to continue to go another day, how attractive do you think you're gonna be to the people in your life when you are in their lives? Because you may not be there now, but at some point you will, whether you like it or not.
Yes.
Do you want to be better or do you not? So allowing things to wrap you up and let you sit where you stay as a form of punishment or as a form of realizing life is just you manifesting that for yourself. You're becoming what's worth the view of what you're giving your kids, of what you're giving the people in your life.
Yes.
Give it a reason. If you're gonna be away, look, I couldn't deal with it at the time. I wasn't prepared, and I had to go, and these are the things I had to go through. But I'm sorry, and this is where I'm at, and this is where I want to be. That's what I would have expected from my father. I'm not saying that's what's gonna work for anybody and everybody, but something is better than nothing, period.
Absolutely. When you did come home, how did your family adjust to you?
My family had this idea that I was still 19. And that only comes from like the distance that we all have.
The only time that I hear that is from myself and people who have done time. And because literally it's two different time zones.
Yeah.
And I would have a picture of Christian. I didn't get pictures often, but when I did, I think the latest picture I had got of him, he was about 5 or 6 or something. But I knew he was 8. Mentally, I knew he was 8.
Mm-hmm.
But in my mind, he was whatever age that picture was.
Yeah.
Because of the time zone split.
That's how I felt about my brother for a little while.
Interesting. But it's interesting hearing your family out here thought you were the same kid. Mm-hmm. That's what I find. I've never heard it the reverse. I've never heard the reverse.
Or you in this, or you're not in your kid's life, da 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 da. What are you talking about? Do you all know what I go through? Do y'all know what my life has been? No. Granted, I haven't done any better, you know, calling people up, but that's out of choice and understanding of why. I know why I did it. Y'all don't accept why. Y'all know why I did it.
Now, are we talking about like as a form of protecting the family, not wanting to stress them out, not wanting them to think, oh, he could die any moment?
No,
I mean,
it was just a form of a disconnect. The women in my life are all I had. But aside from that, the relationships and the dynamics are what, you know, grow or fall. You know, without having to get into specifics, but we all have them.
Yes.
We connect with some, and then other times we don't. As time shows itself, people grow apart. Or actions become what they're not. Or expectations become what you don't exemplify. You expect more than what you give. You forget that you didn't give enough to give whatever example you're expecting.
Yes. And I think a lot of people end up doing that. I think that's part of our magic pill society. I mean, but the least amount of effort to... A lot of people choose the path of least resistance. A lot of people do.
It's out of comfort and habit.
Absolutely.
We're creatures of habit as human beings.
And they wonder why the people who put themselves in the uncomfortable positions are ahead of them now.
The reason for that is because for me, there was a time where I just like got aggravated and understood what I was about to go through again. I was about to go broke again, and I saw it happen in real time. You know what I'm saying? Like, life was about to happen to me again, and I'm watching it happen. At this point, I'm able to tell the future.
You can tell thank you, yes.
So understanding what I was about
it's
to
all a
subject
pattern.
myself,
Yes.
I was like, okay, this is what I gotta do now. So I gotta put myself into an uncomfortable position. Hey, I was wrong. Help me. And it came. People taught me what I needed to know. People told me what I needed to hear. People put me in front of the books I needed to read. People put me in front of the shows I needed to watch. But people also understood and loved me through it. Those that I was wise enough to have around me. So that was also something that happened.
So yeah, that's a great segue. So I have a bunch. See, we got to talk off camera, just politicking. But one of my questions is two sort of final questions. One, what is your view of mental health? What is your view of mental health specifically in your community? And then also, what is your understanding of a mentor, and is a healthy mentor important?
I think it's critical. I think it's more important now than ever. Forget about everything we've been through up to this point. Just look at yourself and see where you are in your life. If you don't feel how you look, and if you don't look how you see the things around you, it doesn't hurt to ask for some help. And if you can't do that, that's where you need to know, and you need to start digging. Because self-awareness, self-understanding, and self-love are absolutely critical, and we're losing that. We're losing that to other things that we identify as love or understanding.
Yes.
Patterns in the way that we carry ourselves in our relationships, and the things that we buy, and the things that we do. And we define those as being stable. Yes. Because that's what the world already shows. That's what normality agrees with.
Yes.
Or that's what the masses agree normality is. And it starts with you.
Absolutely.
If you're not making sense of your shortcomings, and you're not embracing them just as much as the things you love and you see as success, that's where you can start working.
I love that you keep, and I'm assuming this is something that you've practiced a lot. I love that you make distinctions between what one person finds as a form of happiness might not be the same as the next person. Like this isn't a cookie cutter type of situation.
It's an individual process. It's an experience that you go through yourself. If you have the privilege to breathe into life, if you have the privilege to be alive, because we all have things that we want and things that we don't have and things that we wish that we had and everything else in between. But if you're fortunate enough to have a life, you're chosen. You're meant for more.
Thank you. Absolutely. And I if only I could, like,
you have an obligation.
Unplug them from the matrix, plug them into the ship, and like show that. And it was a process for me. I didn't love myself for a very long time.
But people have to recognize what that is supposed to be versus what they want it to be.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting. So I just started, like, reading about, like, somebody, I finally heard the phrase love languages, and you know, it was stuff that I was unaware of before.
It's a way to make this. It's a way to make it easy to digest. I've gone through it several times. I don't know I've done it multiple times, but I don't remember it, and that's a part of, like, one of my flaws. I have a bad memory a lot. But working on that and building on that allows me to be able to find ways to get better. Just having the honesty within yourself and having the humility to accept one of those things that, you know, may make you seem like you're dumb or may make you look like you're not as whatever it is that people make you out to be. Now, stop being afraid of being accepted or being denounced.
Yes.
Be you, because the best version of you
is going to attract everything you need.
Everything you need to move forward into the next version.
Everything you need. And that's what I feel like sometimes. I mean, I'm not religious at all, but it's sort of a Sodom and Gomorrah, the wife turns back, turns to salt kind of thing. Like, there's absolutely nothing back there for you but death. Period. And if you in any way look back, you're confirming that you don't really want to go forward. And
you're confirming that you have something that within you have yet to get through. You have yet to confront.
Yes, and which means you will almost 100% ruin the blessing of whatever was in front of you. That's what I believe.
Not trying to get too much into the whole religious aspect, because that's my whole thing about that is everything is correct. Not everybody has their thing, and everybody should. We're all different. But that if you're chosen to have a life, if you're fortunate enough to have a life, you're chosen to be in here and you're chosen to play a part. You got to find it within yourself, though. It's not going to be within anybody else.
Yes.
And it's got to be understood that some of these examples are going to be meant for, you know, people who refuse to grow, because those are needed as well.
Yes.
Everybody doesn't mean everybody who's living as negatively as possible, because there are those people who just by design choose to be who they are.
Yes. I can think of 1,000 CEOs that can just as easily as I was able to pull a trigger can pull that pen and cut 100,000 jobs. It's the psychology is not very different.
The overall point of it all is, as complex as this just this one little bit is what mental health can be like. And it's not delved through enough. It's not experienced enough. It's not talked about enough. There's not enough in it for everybody to be a part of. Everybody could use mental health. If I'm being frank, I'm a veteran and I speak for veterans always and forever. But if I'm being honest, I'm still a human. I didn't have to sign up with the government to be that. The government had to sign with me when I was born for me to be a commodity to them. Understand that you're in control. You are the thing that makes this all tick.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
But you don't do it by yourself. They know that, which is why they purposely divide us into groups, not by ourselves. They have us capped in groups. We don't do it by ourselves. It's as a community, as a collective, as an entire elemental unit. Everything is ultimately connected in one way or another. And whether you do something or you don't, it's all still an action to a reaction that's going to happen later. If it doesn't happen in an immediate instance.
Absolutely. 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 And what do you think in terms of how do you look at yourself as a mentor? Do you think of it in that way?
I'm a vassal.
Okay. Okay. I can go with that. So with that being said,
I'm poured into by the Most High. That's how I identify.
okay.
That to me is what carries most meaning and most opportunistic character to be able to stay open as possible to any conversation I come across, any life, any person. I don't judge or hate anybody, and I love everybody the same so long as you love me back. I mean, you give me something that you give me, and it's who you are, and I give it back to you. Don't be upset with me. But I'm gonna know better than to treat you any type of way. I want the same for others. I don't. If I am what people want to call me, I'm blessed to just be something worth your time to help you grow better, and that's the biggest blessing for me. A mentor, a brother, a sister, a cousin, a parent.
Yo, we'll definitely. I'm telling you.